1039 LI News Radio and the Southampton Town PBA present Congressman Tim Bishop and Senator Lee Zeldin. Debate live, direct from the Muriel and Virginia Plus Center for the Performing Arts at St. Joseph's College. Here's your moderator, Jay Oliver.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jay Oliver, your moderator for 1039 LI News Radio. To begin this evening, we will ask Tony Vecchio from the Southampton Town PBA to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Before we start, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a few words from Dr. Christopher Frost. He is the Executive Dean right here at St. Joseph's College. Dr. Frost?
Thanks, Jay. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Frost. I'm the Executive Dean here. On behalf of our President, Dr. Jack Calariso, who could not join us this evening, and on behalf of our faculty and the entire St. Joseph's College community, I want to welcome you to tonight's congressional debate for New York's 1st District. In particular, a special welcome to the candidates, Congressman Tim Bishop and New York State Senator Lee Zeldin, both valued friends and supporters of the college. We thank you for joining us. I would also like to thank LI News Radio for giving us the opportunity to be a public forum for this important and timely debate. Not only is it a great opportunity to showcase our college, but it's also a wonderful learning experience for our students, faculty, staff, alumni, and our community members who get to be a part of it. We look forward to a robust and collegial debate. Thank you.
Right now, we'd like to welcome to the stage, first up from the 3rd Senate District, State Senator Lee Zeldin. And the Congressman from the 1st Congressional District, Congressman Tim Bishop. Today is Friday, October the 10th. We are broadcasting live at St. Joseph's College at the Muriel and Virginia Plus Center for Performing Arts in Patchogue, New York. And welcome to the debate. I'm your moderator, Jay Oliver, and for the next hour, we will be discussing issues including health care, taxes, education, and domestic and foreign policy issues. These questions have been compiled by myself and station manager Matt Goldapper, and these questions have not been released to the candidates. The ground rules, as far as time constraints, each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening and closing statements, 2 minutes to answer each question, with a minute rebuttal for each. At this time, we will begin with opening statements. The winner of the coin flip was Congressman Tim Bishop. He has opted to go first. Senator Lee Zeldin will go right after. Congressman.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you to St. Joseph's College for hosting us, and a word of welcome to new President Dr. Calariso. I'm thanking you for being here. We are engaged in a great many of these debates over the next several weeks, and I think it's important to our democracy that we all participate in these debates. I've had the opportunity to serve the 1st Congressional District for 12 years, and during that time, my service has been something that I'm very proud of and something that I know the staff that I work with is very proud of. And let me just talk about a few things in the little bit of time that we have. I have given more emphasis than anything else to constituent service. I think it's the most honorable work that a member of Congress can do. I think it's the most impactful work that a member of Congress can do, and we do it exceedingly well. We have satisfactorily closed over 17,000 constituent service cases, and that is good, solid, hard work. That is really government at its very best, using the power and the influence and the access that I have and my staff has to solve individual problems. We do it every day, and we're very, very good at it, and that's the part of my service that I'm the most proud of. I'm also proud of my legislative record. I have had central roles in writing several very important pieces of legislation, two of which are of particular importance right here on a college campus like St. Joseph's. I was one of the principal authors of the College Cost Reduction Act, which made it less expensive for students to borrow, dropped the student loan interest rate from 6.8% to 3.4% with no new cost to the Treasury. And the second was called the Student Aid and Financial Responsibility Act, which took $65 billion of wasteful subsidies that we were providing to banks to administer a student loan program, and we turned that into additional funds for the Pell Grant program, which is the basic student financial aid program that needy students benefit from. There are 1,600 students at St. Joseph's College that are benefiting, is that 2 minutes? That are benefiting from that program. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Lee Zeldin.
This November 4th is our opportunity, in our corner of America, to send a message to Washington that it's time for change. I believe our nation is headed in the wrong direction, that the Obama-Pelosi agenda is not the best path forward. I want to grow our economy and create more good-paying private sector jobs. I want to secure our borders and America's interests abroad, to fight for our veterans who fought for us, to repeal and replace Obamacare. And I believe in higher standards, but Common Core isn't the answer. It's been an honor to serve both in the nation's military and in the state Senate. To be able to wear our nation's uniform is the highest honor, serving alongside my heroes. In the state Senate, I reduced the MTA payroll tax by 80% of employers, 34,000 employers in Suffolk County alone. We reduced middle-income tax rates to the lowest level in 60 years. We eliminated the saltwater fishing license fee. I co-sponsored the nation's strongest property tax cap. I created the PFC Joseph Dwyer program for our veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. We cannot change Washington unless we change who we send there to represent us. We cannot keep re-electing the same congressman over and over and over again and ever expect a different result. 12 years are enough. It's time to term limit Tim. It's time for a new direction, and that is why I ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 4th.
Thank you, Senator. By way of coin flip, we'll start with the questions. Congressman Tim Bishop, first up. Congressman, the Zeldin campaign has consistently said it is time to, I'm going to quote here, term limit Tim. Some agree with him that you have been in office far too long. What do you say to those people?
Well, respectfully, I would say they're wrong. I've served 12 years in Congress, and I will say that I'm a better member of Congress today than I was when I was first elected, because I've learned. I've learned every single day on the job. I've grown in seniority, and that seniority has given me access to a level of influence that I did not have as a freshman. And I'll give you an example. I am the senior Democrat on what's called the Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee. It is the committee of the Congress that deals with things having to do with shoreline protection, with inland waterways systems, with deep water ports, with small water, shallow water ports. And we wrote a piece of legislation, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, that is one of the few pieces of legislation that's passed this Congress. We've only passed about 25 or 26 substantive pieces of legislation in 2 years, and one of them was a bill that I was one of 4 people to write. Now, a piece of that is something called the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. And I'm sorry to take you into the weeds, but what I did was I insisted that a portion of the funds that are collected in that, which are all collected by large ports, be set aside to dredge and maintain small ports. And so from now on, it will be a lot easier to get funds to dredge Mattahawk Inlet, Shinnecock Inlet, Mauritius Inlet, and Lake Montauk Harbor, Montauk Inlet. Two of the biggest fishing ports, the two biggest fishing ports in New York, big piece of our economy, are at Shinnecock or at Montauk. If I did not have the seniority that I have, the leverage that I have, I wouldn't have been able to get that done. So that's an example of my seniority being able to help deliver for the people that I represent. And I will continue to do that so long as I continue to have the faith and the support of the people of this district.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Zeldin, 1 minute.
Well, I personally support term limits. We have an opportunity November 4th, even without statutory term limits, we can fire our elected officials. My opponent's been in office for 12 years. He has introduced 4 bills that have been passed and signed into law. All 4 bills rename post offices. I've been in office for 4 years. I've introduced 48 bills that have been passed and signed into law. These are bills that cut taxes and fees. They consolidate licenses. They protect our military families from protests at military burials. We can have stronger, more effective leadership representing us. Everyone seems to be in agreement that the way things are trending, the Republicans will be in control of the U.S. House of Representatives. My opponent would, as a Democrat and very fiercely loyal to Nancy Pelosi, would not be in the majority. I, right after getting sworn in, would be able to have more influence than he has now.
Thank you, sir. Senator Zeldin, you have the next question. You have said that Obama has a 0% chance to succeed with his current plan on defeating ISIS. Many agree with this. But what would you specifically propose to put in place to defeat ISIS?
Well, Commander-in-Chief Obama, not General Obama, needs to look in his ranks. We have generals in the military who have been through many deployments. They've been in charge of the conflict on the ground experienced in Iraq and Afghanistan. One of the best things that we did during the conflict in Iraq after we went in was actually putting General David Petraeus in charge of the surge. We gave him the flexibility and the resources to implement his vision to turn the tide. This president has said that this will be different than past wars in Iraq and Afghanistan because there will be no boots on the ground. And in the same speech, he says that he's announcing that he's sending 495 additional troops to Iraq. Now, for me, those are boots on the ground, unless they are riding a magic carpet or they're wearing something other than boots. I want to know who these people are, what their mission is, who's in charge. But we should have someone in charge of that element on the ground with the flexibility and the resources to implement their vision to turn the tide here in America. The president says that his strategy is intended to defeat ISIS. It will be successful at disrupting ISIS. You'll be able to kill some of the bad guys. You'll be able to knock out some of their command control, some of their logistics. But he's relying on Iraqi military and law enforcement to finish the job. They won't even show up to work. I've met these people. If there is a precinct a quarter mile from their house and no threat expected that day, they're not showing up. So to expect them to travel hundreds of miles to defeat an element that makes Al-Qaeda look like Boy Scouts, it's not going to work. It starts off with putting someone on the ground with the experience, someone like a General Lloyd Austin, who's in charge of CENTCOM, who's in charge of the war there in the past, giving them the flexibility and resources to implement their vision. We don't have to go about it alone, but this strategy, unfortunately, will not be successful at defeating ISIS.
Congressman Bishop, 1 minute.
As I understood Senator Zeldin's answer, what he's saying is that we need a senior military officer on the ground to provide supervision and guidance to the 1,600 troops that we have there now. I will assure him that such a person is already on the ground. What we cannot do is allow this conflict to become another conflict between the Christian West and the Muslim Middle East. We need to remember that when we invaded Iraq, we had an enemy. It was Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi army. We quickly disposed of that enemy and then found ourselves mired in a conflict for 11 years, with enemies that did not exist on the day that we invaded. What we need to do is follow the path that the President and the Joint Chiefs had put out there, and we need to bring to the table the moderate countries of the Middle East to throw ISIS out and say, we don't want an activity like this in our midst.
Do you want a quick hit, Senator Zeldin?
Yes, I would love to know.
15 seconds.
The public would love to know who is in charge on the ground, and are they being given the flexibility and resource to implement their vision? General David Petraeus, the entire country, the entire world knew that he was in charge. He published a counterinsurgency model that we were all being able to follow. So I'd like to know who it is, and I want to be sure that they have the flexibility and resource to implement their vision.
Congressman, quickly.
What I hear the senator stepping up to but not crossing the line of is whether we really do introduce ground combat troops into Iraq and Syria once again. I have taken the position that that would be a grievous mistake. And what I simply do not understand is why we would send the young men and women of this country, the best we have to offer, to go to fight and die to preserve a country where the Army itself will not do it for their own country.
Congressman Bishop, you will get the next question. The Zeldin campaign has said you have only passed 4 bills in 12 years. Now, some perceive that as not a good use of your time. Do you feel you have done enough in your 12 years to justify continuing your tenure as congressman?
I do. And let me talk about 2 things. Number one, 2 of those bills were post offices named after Medal of Honor recipients. One for Garfield Langhorne, the only Suffolk County resident to get a Medal of Honor, earn a Medal of Honor in the Vietnam War, and one is right here in Patchogue, named after Michael Murphy. So I will assure you that those 2 post offices mean an awful lot to their families. I asked Senator Zeldin to stop talking in a fashion that was denigrating those bills out of respect for the memory of those people and out of respect for the feelings of the family, but I guess we're going to continue. The second thing I would say is that this is not a measure of how congressmen should be evaluated. Paul Ryan, the intellectual icon of the Republican Party in the House, has been in Congress 8 terms, 2 terms longer than me. He's passed 2 bills. One was for a post office, and one was, are you ready, for a technical fix to a portion of the tax code that affects the manufacturers of arrows. That's Paul Ryan's legislative record. Kevin McCarthy, the number 2 Republican in the House, 4 terms, has passed 2 bills. Kevin McCarthy, by the way, is coming out to help my opponent. 1 post office, 1 federal building. So this is not a measure. The measure of whether a member of Congress is doing his or her job is whether they are representing the people that sent them to Washington and are doing the job that they were sent there to do. And I am extremely confident that I have done that, both in terms of my legislative record, in terms of the legislation that I have helped write and push through the Congress, and in terms of the service that I've provided to our constituents.
Thank you, sir. Senator Lee Zeldin, 1 minute.
Well, not running against Paul Ryan, you're running against Lee Zeldin. I had laws passed that renamed a bridge for Michael Esposito, first KIA in Afghanistan. We got a bridge for an FDNY lieutenant who was killed, Richard Nappy. But we also got bills done that cut taxes and fees, consolidated licenses, protected our military families from protested military burials, dozens of other things. We have people who right now are in St. Joseph's College, students who are saddled with student loan debt, looking for the opportunity to be able to survive here on Long Island. What are you doing? What are you introducing and passing that are cutting taxes and fees, reducing property taxes, reducing health care costs, reducing energy costs? That's the results that these people are looking for.
Thank you, sir. Congressman Bishop, 15 seconds.
He cares an awful lot about student loan debt. Let me challenge him. There's a bill in the Congress that would take all public and private student loan debt and allow students to consolidate their loans and reborrow or refinance their loans at the current rate of 3.4%. Now, that is co-sponsored by virtually every Democrat in the House, including me.
Thank you, sir.
Would Senator Zeldin co-sponsor it if he cares so much about student loan debt?
Senator Zeldin, you have the next question. Many Americans are divided about what to do with illegal immigration. From the community's perspective, we are faced with either poor ideas or no ideas. Now, you have stated you do not support a path to earn legal immigration for these 10 to 12 million undocumented immigrants that are here now. Now, specifically, how do you propose we deal with them, and specifically, what needs to get done?
Well, first off, just to correct something, I do not support giving citizenship to people who are not here in the country legally. I support legal immigration. I want that to be very clear. I support legal immigration. The first step is we have to secure our borders. You cannot, when you have a leak, the first thing you do, you turn off the faucet. You don't take out a mop. 30 years ago, President Reagan in Congress tried passing immigration reform. Critics said that if we were to pass that reform, that the challenge would multiply, which it has. So that's something that's very important. Now, through the legal immigration process, Congress, in all of its dysfunction, has decided that they want to tackle 1,000 different challenges related to immigration in one piece of legislation. All the Republicans are arguing with Democrats, and all the Democrats are arguing with the Republicans, yet they want to try to tackle 1,000 challenges in one. First step is securing our borders. But where we can find common ground with regards to our legal immigration process, we have on the North Fork immigrant labor. They come here seasonally. There are employers who are struggling through federal bureaucracy to get permission to have their labor come here. They want to pay, they want to go back home. On the South Fork with the tourism and the hospitality industry, same thing, a lot of bureaucracy. They're not getting their employment here on time. We pay to educate people who come here. They want to stay. They get graduate degrees, PhDs, opportunities available for them. We can allow these immigrants to pay taxes, and they say they pay taxes. There are many different ways to pay taxes to pay for some of the benefits that they have, some of the health care that they have, the cost of education, the cost of food. So there are ways that I believe that Republicans and Democrats can find common ground. My opponent says that the only way is to try to solve 1,000 challenges, all with one piece of legislation in the Senate. I reject that.
Congressman Bishop, 1 minute.
The question asked specifically, what would we do? I didn't hear any specifics, but I will tell you specifically what I will do. What I will do is to continue to work for the passage of the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Bill, compromise bill that came out of the Senate, product of 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. It tackles the issues of border protection. It tackles the issues of internal enforcement. It tackles the issues of fixing our visa system, which is badly broken. But it also tackles the most thorny issue, which is what do you do with the 11 to 12 million people who are here now? And what it does is it sets up a path to earned citizenship that over a 15-year period, pay taxes twice, pay fines twice, learn English, learn civics, and maintain an otherwise clean record, and after 15 years, you would be granted citizenship. Now, that's what my opponent has described as amnesty. That is not amnesty. That is earning your place in this country by virtue of paying your dues, and that, I think, is the best way to resolve this problem.
Senator Zeldin, you want 15 seconds on that.
So this is our 3rd debate, and what I have learned, just reached an epiphany listening just now, is that I could actually articulate 10,000 specifics, and my opponent will still say that I didn't name one. So, we have a limited time here in our answers. Unfortunately, a lot of things get reduced to sound bites. I provide substance, and I would hope that if you would listen.
Next question for Congressman Bishop. Obamacare's employer, according to a Lee Zeldin press release, the employer mandate will further prevent businesses from growing as healthcare costs rise. Now, we have already begun to see that small businesses are making hiring decisions based on the Obamacare requirements on companies with over 50 employees. Many employers have already begun decreasing employees' hours from full-time to part-time to avoid this mandate. How do you respond to these small business owners?
First off, I'm going to push back gently on the premise of the question. We have added over 2 million jobs just in this year. We have added over 8 million jobs since Obamacare was passed. The percentage of people working right now that are full-time is higher than it's ever been, and the percentage of people that are working part-time is lower than it's been in recent years. So there is simply no evidence to say that employers are moving employees from full-time to part-time so as to try to avoid the employer mandate that is included in the Affordable Care Act. Also, the employer mandate does not kick in for another year. So this is part of sort of a misinformation campaign that is designed to discredit a law that I consider to be a work in progress. It has good pieces to it, and we should keep them and emphasize them. It has pieces to it that deserve to be fixed. Now, in any other mature legislative body, we would set about the process of fixing them. We're not doing that in the House of Representatives because it's not a mature legislative body. What we have spent our time doing is 52 times we have passed a piece of legislation that would either reduce support for Obamacare or eliminate it entirely. Now, if there's time to do that 52 times, someone needs to explain to me why it is that in 4 years there has not been time to bring a single suggestion from the Republican leadership of the House as to how they would handle providing health care to our citizens. And let us remember, the 13 million people who have health insurance now that did not have it a year ago, these are our fellow citizens. And we have to think about them when we go through this process. And by the way, this is working. Hospitals are saving $5.7 billion just this year in unreimbursed care as a result of additional coverage.
Senator Zeldin, 1 minute.
It's just dishonest to say that there hasn't been any suggestions put forward as far as replacements, and I keep articulating some of the same suggestions over and over again, like Tom Price's bill or Ted Poe's bill or Tom Coburn's bill, which are in bill form. So as far as coming up with suggestions, they're actually in bill form. That there are components like being able to cover people with pre-existing conditions, to allow children to stay on their parents' policies, which can be part of a replacement. But there's other components of Obamacare, like the employer mandate, like the individual mandate, as a fact is resulting in higher premiums, higher deductibles, canceled policies, lost doctors, longer wait times, hospitals getting essentially monopolies, opening up their own insurance firms, and then driving up costs. There needs to be malpractice reform. We need to allow businesses to pool policies. We need to allow the portability of policies across state lines. We need to get people off the Medicaid rolls. And I ran out of time, but again, I keep offering specifics, and we go one debate after another, and you're yet to acknowledge the fact that they do exist.
Thank you, sir. Congressman Bishop, 15 seconds.
Quickly. There are about 3,000 bills filed every session of Congress. The fact that the Republican leadership of the House of Representatives controls every single thing that happens in the House, and they have not brought a substitute bill or even anything that modifies the Affordable Care Act, means they don't have a plan. They just don't have a plan.
Next question is for Senator Zeldin. It's a three-part question. You have stated that you plan to help the efforts to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act. Do you realistically think at this point that this can be accomplished? What would you say to the 16 million people who went from having health care to not having health care? And how much money would this cost taxpayers to transition back?
Well, I guess I could pick up at the end of my last answer. Part of the challenge is what you say right now to the tens of millions of people who now have to pay more premiums or pay more deductibles, or they lost their doctors, or they had their policies canceled. They were very happy with their health insurance, and they have since lost it. There are a lot of alternatives. Now, one of the problems in Washington, and what we hear in my opponent's answer, is just blaming the Republicans. I have not stood here saying that the problem is, the Democrats or the Republicans. The problem is Washington. You have Republicans and Democrats, people of both parties. Their only version of compromise is for them to have it 100% their way all of the time. There has been, you could flip the whole argument around. Talk about the bills that passed the House sitting on Harry Reid's desk where he refuses to bring the bills to the floor for a vote. Over 40 jobs bills, almost 400 bills altogether. Sheila Jackson Lee, a Democratic House member, has had more votes on her amendments than every Senate Republican combined. The problem isn't with one party or the other. The problem is with everyone who prioritized their own re-election above all else. Re-election, re-election, re-election. They love their power, they love their prestige, they love their perks, and they don't want to lose it. We need folks in office with the intestinal fortitude to make tough decisions. You could be liberal, moderate, or conservative and be reasonable and rational. When Republicans and Democrats share power, they have to be willing to sit at a table to see where there can be common ground to move our country forward. You, sir, have not been willing to sit down at that table to talk about how to improve health care. Instead, you've been quoted as saying, there's nothing not to like about it. Tonight, you have obviously changed that a little bit, but you have to be part of fixing it because it's a mess.
Thank you. Congressman Bishop, 1 minute.
Let me suggest to my friend that full and total repeal of the Affordable Care Act does not fall under the heading of being willing to sit down at a table and try to figure out how to go forward. Okay? He can keep saying it, but he's someone who's saying that he's unwilling to compromise because what he's putting out there is an absolute repeal totally. And he's also not putting out there the slightest hint of what he would replace it with. Keeps talking about all these options. Well, where are they? Where are they? I mean, are they? I have said repeatedly that it is a work in progress. We should continue to support those pieces of it that are working. But he was asked, what would he say to the 13 million Americans who now have insurance, but that would lose it if we were to do what he wants, which is repeal it? I suppose he would say we were only kidding.
Thank you. Senator Zeldin, 15 seconds.
You know, again, unfortunately, this is taped. Folks can listen to it over and over again. I encourage the incumbent to do that as well because there'll be more debates. Again, there are multiple proposals. I'm willing to consider and be part of a conversation with regards to all of them, as well as all of the options that I discussed earlier. Please listen.
I'm going to go to the next question. 10-second question.
I would just say very quickly, if any of these proposals that he keeps referring to were actually introduced and allowed to have a hearing or a vote, I'd be happy to consider them also.
We're going to move on. Congressman Bishop, you have the next question. This past Wednesday, for the first time in the United States, the Ebola virus claimed the life of an American. In your opinion, was this handled properly? If not, how would you suggest that this be handled?
Are you referring to the guy in Texas?
Yeah.
That's not an American, is it?
This past Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. I think the hospital probably made a mistake in sending the guy away when he first arrived. They didn't take his symptoms as seriously as perhaps they should have. I think that what is now happening is that Centers for Disease Control, the medical community, their awareness is at the highest possible level. Efforts to deal with the experimental vaccines that can be given to people who are suffering from Ebola, to get those produced, have been accelerated and ramped up. But I also think that the kinds of things that we are now doing, the intensive screening, both passengers leaving West Africa and arriving in the United States, is something that we must do. But I think this is an area that Senator Zeldin and I agree upon. I think that we should put a moratorium on travel from West African countries to the United States until such time that we can see our way clear to thinking that we have an absolutely foolproof screening system, both in West Africa and in the United States.
Senator Zeldin, 1 minute on the clock.
Yeah, we must stop the travel. We have folks coming here who they're essentially checking a box on a piece of paper. They are getting out of an airport and they're putting U.S. citizens at risk. We have to stop travel. We also have to increase all the screening processes inside of our airports. We have to take this threat very seriously. Whether we were talking earlier about border security or, this question with regards to Ebola or the question earlier with regards to ISIS, our entry process has to be better secured. Our Department of Homeland Security needs to improve the process of people coming here to this country. You have U.S. citizens going abroad, traveling, bringing back disease. You have people who aren't even U.S. citizens being able to come through a porous border. So our whole entry process needs to improve. This Ebola issue, this challenge, is just another reminder that we have a flawed immigration process, a vulnerable border, and we need to do more.
Thank you. Next question is for Senator Lee Zeldin. According to the Economic Policy Institute, almost 28 million people would see an increase in wages if the federal minimum wage was increased to $10.10 an hour. And over 5 million people would be lifted out of poverty, which would diminish who qualifies for welfare and other social programs. If you do not support this federal increase in minimum wage, would you have another plan to another increase?
Well, New York State's minimum wage is higher than the rest of the country. New York State's minimum wage is being increased to $9 an hour. For a lot of the people who, in Seattle, they want to increase it to $15 an hour. You can make it, $20, $25 an hour, if you really want to get carried away. We have to understand the bottom line of small businesses here in Suffolk County. When you talk about, Dunkin' Donuts, for example, it's a franchise. You might have an individual who owns 4 Dunkin' Donuts here in Suffolk County. If one of them is barely making a profit and you continue to increase the cost to do business, what they will do is just close the Dunkin' Donuts altogether, and all of those people are out of a job. If you're a small business owner and you have $30,000 budgeted to pay 2 minimum wage employees, if you increase the minimum wage, that pot of money didn't get any higher. So one person may end up making more money, but the other person is going to end up getting less hours, may get laid off altogether. So there are very real challenges related to minimum wage, the minimum wage debate, which need to be injected beyond sound bites, beyond just firing people up. If you do a poll, everyone's in favor of their next door neighbor making more money than they are right now. But you have to be smart about how you do it. We have right now, for folks who are struggling to make ends meet, minimum wage is, it's one thing, especially if you're, 18, 19, 20 years old. We have folks who are making $80,000 a year. They're married, they have 2 kids, they own a home, and they are foreclosing on their home. They are struggling to survive. Folks who might be making $14 an hour in that same business. Does this help that person who's making $14 an hour make any more? That money has to come from somewhere. So, unfortunately, this is something that has been riddled with sound bites and partisan rhetoric, but you really have to get into a substantive debate to make sure that there isn't collateral damage of jobs here on Long Island.
Thank you. Congressman Bishop, 1 minute.
I take it that he doesn't support an increase in the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. Now, this is substance, folks. This is one of the most heavily studied areas in economics. There have been hundreds and hundreds of studies, and they virtually have all found the same thing, which is that modest increases in the minimum wage spread over time, precisely what the federal government is proposing, precisely what New York State now has, do not have a negative impact on jobs. In fact, they have an impact on jobs that is positive. Why? Because the principal component of our economy is consumer spending. 70% of our economy is consumer spending. The biggest problem we have in the economy is slack in the economy. People aren't spending money. One way to fix that without losing jobs, because as I say, the studies show that that's not what happens, is to increase the minimum wage. You do that, by the way, and you save about $40 billion over 10 years in federal food stamp expense.
Thank you. Congressman Bishop, the next question is yours. Do you support the Common Core standards, and what role have you played in the process?
I think the rollout of Common Core was a disaster. I think it's about the only thing that can make the rollout of Obamacare look good is the rollout of Common Core. But I do believe that it would be a mistake to take Common Core and do as my opponent is suggesting, which is to simply throw it out and repeal it. We do need higher standards, and I think there was a survey that just was published today in Newsday that said that 80% of school superintendents, including 75% of school superintendents on Long Island, support it and believe that learning has improved in the school districts over which they preside. That's a good thing. And we also need to recognize that the system we have now isn't giving us the high school graduates that we need. 20% of the students that enter four-year colleges need remediation, and 50% of the students that enter two-year colleges need remediation. That means hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, are being spent to educate those students in a fashion that should have been taken place when they were in high school. So I think that we need higher standards, and I think that we should not simply throw out Common Core. We should fix it. Now, the second thing I would say is my opponent is determined to make this a federal issue. It is not a federal issue. It is a state issue. The states voluntarily opted into Common Core. They voluntarily applied for Race to the Top. The implementation varies from state to state. The federal government has had no role in implementation. The federal government had no role in the development of Common Core, but because it's a wedge issue and because he thinks it polls well, he wants to put it on the federal government, and it's just not true. Now, what he will tell you is that I signed a letter. Yes, I did. I signed a letter along with every other member of the New York delegation urging the Department of Education to approve New York's Race to the Top application. That letter was joined by 95 other letters from entities within the state.
Thank you. Senator Lee Zeldin, 1 minute.
My opponent he says he had no role in the rollout of Common Core except for when he did. The federal government provided hundreds of millions of dollars to fund the consortiums. The New York State and states all across this country were signing up to the Common Core standards. The federal government was dangling hundreds of millions of dollars into the billions for the state of New York. There were states signing on to the Common Core standards before there were Common Core standards. You had these standards that are national, the tests created by the state, curriculum set by the local school district. Nobody is talking to each other. You have a lot of material that's not age appropriate. You have students who are, special ed students who are reading at a grade level maybe a few years below, but they're taking the test for their actual age, which is wrong. As I've said, we are throwing our kids in the deep end without a life jacket. So, and by the way, this has nothing to do with a wedge issue and poll, believe it or not. I have daughters in the third grade. I care about them and their generation.
Senator Zeldin, you have the next question. Congressman Tim Bishop and Senator Chuck Schumer led the effort to obtain Sandy Beach nourishment dollars to Long Island. Some have complained that the whole process is just taking too long. What would you have done differently to expedite the process?
So leading the effort to have a press conference, leading the effort to put out a press release, I don't know how many people would commend that. I would actually suggest that actually having the money show up is something that deserves a pat on the back. We had, by the first Memorial Day, we had money, we had new dunes, new roads in Nassau County on Jones Beach, money flowing into Staten Island and Brooklyn and Queens and Jersey. There are parts of the Jersey Shore that are it's better than it was before. $700 million has been announced again and again. There have been Newsday stories about new timelines. Now, the incumbent now has a new excuse because a couple of weeks ago, a federal court issued a temporary restraining order on a project just south of the village of Mastic Beach, a really important project. But why is it that the barrier beaches everywhere other than the 1st Congressional District is getting filled with sand? And all you have, sir, are excuses. You have infamously called yourself the freaking mailman, but you have not delivered.
Congressman Tim Bishop, 1 minute.
I see the gloves are coming off. Very classy. Don't ever count on pardon me, you can always count on my opponent to not let the facts get in the way of a good attack. Okay? And he was also asked what he would do differently. He would ask what he would do differently. Listen very carefully. Didn't hear a word about what he would do differently. 2 minutes of attack, no positive substance about what he would do. Fact of the matter is that the Smith Point Park project is one of 60 projects being managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. It is the first new construction of Sandy-related relief in all of those 60 projects. Why is it the first? Because I and Senator Schumer pushed so hard for that to happen. Now, if he wants to criticize the Army Corps of Engineers, be my guest. But we have worked very hard to bring him to the table, and he knows that it's not an excuse. He knows there's a TRO that blocks it.
Senator Zeldin, 15 seconds.
Well, the good news for the people who are looking for sand, the bad news for my opponent, is that for all these people who are very frustrated, I'm doing more than criticizing. I'm running against you, and I'm asking for everyone listening for their vote on November 4th.
Congressman Bishop, you're up. President Obama said last week that he wanted to make it very clear that his policies, and I quote, policies are on the ballot this November. Do you feel the president's agenda should be complemented with an all-Democrat Congress?
I think, first off, that some of the policies that the president has pursued are on the ballot, and we should want them on the ballot. We're recovering economically. We've had 55 consecutive months of private sector job growth. The stock market's gone from 8,000 to 16,000. Manufacturing's coming back. Buildings coming back. Home sales are coming back. So we have an economy that's healing. He inherited the worst economy since Franklin Roosevelt inherited the economy in 1932. But there are policies of the president that I don't support. I don't support his support of charter schools, for example. I know that's an area where my opponent and I differ. He does support charter schools. I don't support his trade policies. He wants the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He wants what's called Trade Promotion Authority. I've made it very clear I support neither of those. But when the president's right, I'm going to support him, and if he's taking policies, pursuing policies that help the people of my district, then I'm going to support him. If he's pursuing policies that I think are antithetical to the interests of the people of my district, such as the trade policies, I'm not going to.
Senator Zeldin, 1 minute.
So I don't believe that there should be a one-party Democratic rule down in Washington. I believe that the Obama-Pelosi agenda is leading our country in the wrong direction, that we need a check and balance on this president's agenda. My opponent drinks this agenda's Kool-Aid with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I happen to disagree with a lot of key components of this president's strategy with regards to our health care, with regards to our education policy. I believe that he needs to be stronger and more consistent with our foreign policy. I believe that we need to do a better job securing our borders. I think that we need to do more to create more private sector jobs. The Keystone Pipeline is a way to not only create jobs, but reduce our energy costs. There are many opportunities to reduce our reliance on foreign oil, reduce our reliance on oil altogether. But right now, with all of the dysfunction that's raining down in Washington,
Thank you, sir.
We need to have a check and balance, though, on this president's agenda.
Senator Zeldin, you're up next. The Violence Against Women Act provides funds toward investigation and prosecution of violent crimes against women. Impose automatic and mandatory restitution of those convicted. Would you have voted yes, no, or present on the reauthorization of the Violence Against the Women Act? And if you can explain.
Well, I would have voted for the reauthorization. I'm someone who, as a prosecutor and as a military magistrate, I've put people in jail for doing bad things to people at home, whether it was domestic violence that was an assault or up to a sexual assault. And I think that there is a tremendous challenge that we face in our military and out, that we need to do more to be able to protect women. And this is just one way. I mean, we have this, for strictly political reasons, you have this manufactured war on women trying to scare women into voting for Democrats. And the fact is that there is so much common ground, and this is actually a question which is an example of one place where maybe the incumbent and I would agree. I'm proud of my time where I was able to prosecute for 18 months, putting people in jail for doing bad things to their spouses. I would take this opportunity to say that we need to do more within our military to have women comfortable to come forward for these sexual assaults, to make sure they are investigated so that these women feel comfortable stepping forward with the right confidentiality, that we're holding people accountable. I think that there's a lot of reforms that I've seen firsthand as a JAG officer that needs to get done within our military. But right here out in our streets, up in Albany, I introduced legislation that passed in New York Senate to protect the confidentiality of women who are victims so that their addresses, their identities aren't revealed when they register through the Board of Elections. There's a lot that can be done at all levels of government, and I'm proud to have done it through the practice of law in the military as well as a state senate to be able to, as a state senator, to be able to fight for women.
Congressman Bishop, 1 minute.
I was a co-sponsor of the Violence Against Women Act. I voted for it. I'm proud to have voted for it as the father of 2 daughters. I want to make sure that they have every possible protection. I agree with the senator with respect to the military. I think the military needs to move forward much more aggressively than they have in dealing with the problem of sexual assault in the military. It's a very serious problem that has not been dealt with, in my opinion, adequately, although that's starting. And I also think some of the states that are moving to yes means yes type regulations or laws, such as California, I think they're moving in the right direction as well.
Thank you. I'm going to pose this question. Each of you, the same question to both. Each of you will have 2 minutes to answer before closing statements. As a group, the students in Money, Media, and Politics at St. Joseph's College propose this question to both of you. Would you pledge to vote for legislation reducing interest rates on federally subsidized Stafford loans to the same rate at which banks can borrow from the federal government? We'll start with Senator Zeldin.
Well, you know, earlier on in the debate, the incumbent was talking about an effort. In 2010, he helped pass legislation that would reduce student loan rates to 3.4%. A lot of political jockeying down in Washington with regards to that rate, whether or not it should be kept artificially low. Also, there's a movement to take away federal subsidies towards private companies that are insuring students. I think that we need to allow students to be able to structure their loans in a way where they can get off the ground and get into the workforce. I think that a lot of with the interest payments that come due immediately, as soon as they get into the workforce, they're unable to even get out of the starting gate. And it's another factor that's driving folks off of Long Island. I think there needs to be a better ability to refinance loans to lower interest rates. A lot of students are having trouble getting a lower interest rate than what they're paying currently based off of the market. I think that we need to utilize the market in a way to allow folks to have the lowest interest rate possible and have the maximum amount of competition. The government taking over and the student loan, the entire student loan challenge is not the best solution. We need to have more people competing against each other to drive rates down. So this isn't just about a government fix. There has been legislation offered, some of which that I would support, but I do not believe that having the government controlling interest rates and artificially keeping it down to 3.4% is the best answer, because you are going to have a crisis at some point. The money has to come from somewhere. And this is one of the problems in Washington, is that they say really popular things. Let's pay for this, let's pay for that, let's pay for that, while the debt continues to increase, deficits continue to increase. We have to be smart about how we do it long term, not just what do we do between now and your next election.
Congressman Bishop, you have 2 minutes.
I don't think I need 2 minutes. I understood the question to require a yes or no answer. The answer is yes. The bill to which our moderator refers is a bill that was filed by John Tierney that would allow students to consolidate both their public loans, that is to say government-secured loans, and their private loans, and refinance them at 3.4% interest. This will save students thousands of dollars over the life of the loan if we were able to do that. So do I support it? You're damn right I support it. And what I find curious is that I have heard my opponent several times bemoan student loan debt. By the way, he's right. We should bemoan student loan debt, but here's a solution. Grab it. But no, he talks around it, talks about the government shouldn't be setting interest rates. I got news for you folks. The Federal Reserve is the government, and it does set interest rates. So I think it's a good piece of legislation. I think it makes the cost of borrowing less expensive for students. That's going to encourage them to go to college, and that's what we need in this country, an educated workforce. So I support it.
Thank you. It is now a closing statement time, and we will start with Senator Lee Zeldin.
Well, thank you to LI News Radio and St. Joseph's College for hosting tonight's debate. What we have, when we have these opportunities at debates, we talk about issues that are directed at us. When you go home and you watch TV, you'll see what my opponent's priorities are when he's spending millions of dollars in attack ads, trying to scare seniors into voting for him by saying, I want to privatize their Social Security, even though that is 100% untrue. He's trying to scare women into voting for him by saying that I oppose equal pay for equal work, that I want to get rid of common forms of birth control, that I want women to be paying more than men for their health coverage, even though all of that is untrue. He's trying to tell people that I want taxpayers to be on the hook for corporate pollution, even though that is 100% false. So it's unfortunate that we can't have what we have tonight with the substantive debate on facts actually dominating the public debate out on the streets when people are at home trying to decide who to vote for. It's time for a change. 12 years are enough. I really do believe that our country could be heading in a better direction. I want to grow our economy, create more good-paying private sector jobs. We spoke tonight about the need to secure our borders, to protect America's interests overseas. We need to fight for our veterans who fought for us. I do support throwing Common Core out. We do need to repeal and replace Obamacare. My opponent's priorities are on TV right now, and if they're not, he should change his ads and maybe focus a little bit about substance like we saw here tonight. It's time for a new direction for this country. I believe it's time to term limit Tim for all of you who want to see a better path for America. If you want your voice heard, if you want to see anything changed whatsoever, we cannot keep reelecting the same guy over and over and over again. There's a clear difference of opinion as far as who should be in charge of Washington, whether or not Republicans and Democrats can work better together than they are right now. I believe we have a better path ahead of us. It's not with our current incumbent having another 2 years.
Congressman Tim Bishop on the close. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Can I
Reset the clock, please, to 2 minutes. Go, sir. Congressman, go ahead. You're up. You're up.
Could I have 2 minutes?
2 minutes on the clock, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
First off, let me say that my opponent has a real set to talk about attack ads. To talk about attack ads when you take a look at what he's got up, and his side's got up against me. But you know what? It's a tough, dirty business. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to whine. Now, what my opponent frequently refers to, tonight he referred to the Obama-Pelosi agenda. He normally calls it the Obama-Pelosi-Bishop agenda. And we all know what that is. That's poll-tested political rhetoric. That's empty, meaningless. But I'm going to tell you what the Bishop agenda is. And the Bishop agenda has been on view for 12 years. And it's an agenda I'm proud of. And it's an agenda where I have been focused exclusively on the people of my district and trying to deliver for the people of my district. And let me give you a quick example of what's the difference between he and I. The bill we were just talking about, the student loan bill, the SAFRA bill that he criticized this week in something that he put out. it takes $65 billion worth of subsidies, unnecessary subsidies over a 10-year period, away from the banks and gives it to needy students. Now, let me tell you, if I have a choice between protecting the bottom line of banks or helping needy students, I'm going to go with needy students every single day of the week. And let me further tell you that my opponent has criticized that bill. Now, if you want a guy that's going to go to Washington and give care and comfort to the banks, he's your guy. If you want a guy that's going to go to Washington and fight like crazy for the people of his district so that they get their slice of the American dream, I'm your guy. Thank you all. I ask for your vote.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out. We'll run out of time. Don't forget, November 4th, Election Day. Get out and vote. Stay tuned for the post-debate analysis with John Gomez and Christopher Hahn.
Live from the Sloman Studio at Long Island MacArthur Airport's Broadcast Center. Sloman's, the trusted provider of home security services. Call 1-800-ALARM-ME to find out how you can get the Sloman Shield for free. WRCN Riverhead,
Islip,
Brookhaven,
Southampton.
This is 1039 LI News Radio.
I'm Bill Powers with a 1039 LI News Radio update. In an online video released this week, Republican gubernatorial candidate Rob Astorino is calling on Governor Cuomo to engage in more debates. So far, there's only one debate scheduled later in the month on local TV in Buffalo. Astorino says he's recently accepted debates offered by major TV stations and newspapers and is urging Cuomo to accept. Cuomo said in the past he offered a one-on-one on radio, but Astorino rejected it because Astorino says Cuomo didn't want it televised. An ambulance transporting a patient was involved in a crash in Riverhead last night. News 12 reports the ambulance collided with a Ford Explorer at the intersection of Northville Turnpike and Middle Road. A patient from an earlier accident was in the back of the ambulance at the time. The person was taken to Stony Brook University Hospital. The 5 ambulance personnel on board at the time of the crash and the SUV driver were treated for minor injuries. Police say a stroller carrying 2 children was struck by a car in Lindenhurst Friday morning. The incident occurred at the intersection of West Hoffman Avenue and South 5th Street just before 9 a.m. According to News 12, the driver was making a left turn and did not see an adult walking with 2 children in the stroller. The driver struck the stroller, knocking it over. Police say both children were treated at the scene and did not appear to have any injuries, but they were still taken to Good Samaritan Hospital to be checked out. The driver is not facing any charges. An East Hampton landlord has been sentenced to 5 years probation for spying on his tenants. Donald Torr admitted yesterday to charges of unlawful surveillance and child endangerment. Police say the 71-year-old installed 7 surveillance cameras 2 summers ago in the bedrooms, bathrooms, and hallways of his home on Winterberry Lane in East Hampton. News 12 reports the cameras were connected to a digital recorder in the basement. Your weekend weather forecast is on the way. I'm Bill Powers for 1039 LI News Radio.
1039 LI News Radio. We're back here at St. Joseph's College. I am Christopher Hahn, host of the Christopher Hahn Show, Sunday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. right here on 1039 LI News Radio. And joining me right now is weekday host John Gomez, who is here with Lunchtime with Gomez every Monday through Friday, 12 to 2 p.m. And John, I don't know about you.
Now it's dinner. Now it's dinner with Gomez.
It's dinner with Gomez.
I strike out every time. I mean, I say lunch with Gomez. I do not eat lunch.
I keep saying for those listening at home, I need a sponsor who's going to bring me food because I'm on at dinner time and it's very, very hungry. But John, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed watching that debate. I thought it was a nice back and forth. I thought both candidates had a lot to say. And they both handled themselves well. I didn't think anybody drew blood tonight. I don't think any ground was made up. I don't think any ground was lost. But I thought it was a good spirited debate. I don't know what you think.
And I give credit to the audience as well. They were great. They were, very, very enthusiastic. We're talking about passionate issues,
right?
Quite frankly, the one that I'm passionate about is student loans. I disagree with both of them, quite frankly. I think the fact that we are financing these huge universities, there are some universities out there with more money than the government has. I mean, there are some universities, I think it was Dartmouth, sitting on like a $1 billion endowment. Let the colleges, I believe in the term get skin in the game, have skin in the game. I think colleges should start giving out the loans to the students. Thereby, the colleges have some incentive to actually educate the students so that by the time they get a degree, they'll be marketable. They'll be able to get a job and be able to repay the loans.
That is not an unreasonable proposal, John. You know, there should be some skin in the game on colleges, and I got to tell you, the cost of higher education has gone through the roof. I have one in college now. I got one going in 10 years. I don't know what that's going to be.
Where is she going now?
Well, she's going to Suffolk right now, thank God, which is still one of the best values in higher education, along with St. Joseph's College, I might add, right here in Patchogue, which is a great value in higher education. But I have a different tact. I think when it comes to student loans right now, you know, we spent all this money bailing out the banks, and what do we get for it? I think it's time we bail out student loans here in this country. I think we're paying too much. I think too many people are saddled by it. They can't have creativity. They can't go out and start businesses because they got to pay that loan. And I think we got to do something.
I agree with you on that. And quite frankly, I think that these universities are sitting back enjoying huge amounts of money, and who's to pay? Is the taxpayers ending up paying all these loans?
Absolutely.
So and have you been to a college campus recently?
I live by one.
I happen
to one right now. What are you talking about, John? Have you been? What happened?
No,
what did you do after the show today? You had a few?
Across the state.
Yes.
Across the state. I just had a daughter who went to college, and I had to travel the state to go to some of these universities. And when I went to college, you ate basically what they served you. Today, I've been to some of these cafeterias. It's like they have 12 different. They have sushi bars. They have steak. They have Mexican.
Those are private vendors that come onto the campus and they serve the students. And it's a whole thing.
I don't know.
In most cases. But let's go back to the debate here. Let's talk about this debate. You know, one of the things I noticed in the debate was that Bishop tend to focus more on the local issues in CD1. And I thought that Zeldin's attack was a more national-oriented attack. And I still believe that the reason why the 1st Congressional District is still one of the few swing districts in this country, there's maybe only 30 districts like it all over the country, is that I think politics in the 1st Congressional District is still a local affair. And I think that in this debate, Tim kept bringing it back to the local issues, where I thought Lee was kind of taking that kind of national approach to the debate. What do you think about that?
Well, Obamacare is national. So is Common Core. I don't know what Tim Bishop is talking about, that the federal government has nothing to do with Common Core. This is the federal government dictating how we're supposed to run our schools.
Well, let's talk about why there's a Common
one last
Core.
thing. I'm sorry. Obamacare and Common Core, you have the Democrats saying the rollout, the rollout, the rollout. Why does the government keep on pushing down our throats all this new Obamacare and Common Core when they haven't figured out how to do it yet?
Well,
why do we have to constantly pass bills before we find out what's in them?
The thing about Common Core, and you know, I agree that Common Core has been rolled out poorly, but we passed Common Core for a reason. We passed Common Core because we needed to enhance our students' learning ability in this country, because we were falling behind and we were losing our competitive advantage. Now, those that come out there and say, let's just scrap it because my kids aren't doing too well and I can't help them with their homework, which, by the way, I'm one of those guys who can't help their kids with their homework right now, I think that that's a mistake. I think that we have to revisit it. We need high standards. We need our kids learning modern learning techniques, learning modern mathematics, learning modern science and modern English techniques. We can't just scrap the entire program. We need to train the teachers better, we need to roll it out better, and we need to train the parents as well to kind of work with it.
I don't know how you're going to train the parents, but I'll have to agree with you on one. But there's one issue here about education, and we're missing the family portion of education, because what I think a lot of teachers are dealing with in classrooms today is a lot of discipline issues and so forth, and kids are not coming in there with some respect. I would call for mandatory school uniforms. I'd put uniforms on all these kids, honest to God. Because the problem is, you got kids coming to school and they don't know whether they're going to a rap concert or they're going to school.
I think they're
half dressed. They're in flip flops. They're in t-shirts.
You and I are the only guys here not in a suit tonight, and you're calling for
a blazer.
You do have a blazer. At least you have a blazer. I give you credit for that. So, look, I've heard that uniform conversation for years, and I get it. Maybe not uniform. But maybe a dress code. I mean, maybe you're right. Kids should maybe show up to school dressed appropriately.
They're just not taking it seriously. That's what I'm saying.
What else do you make of this debate tonight? I mean, I thought it was lively. I think both candidates, I've seen them over the years, I remember Senator Zeldin from his first run. I hadn't seen him speak publicly in a long time. I think he did a lot better. And Tim Bishop has come light years from the last time I've seen him debate. They were both really lively. I thought it was great.
I'm tired of seeing the Democrats saying how much they've helped and how much Governor Cuomo was here for Sandy. Because I know people still in Long Beach, in Oceanside, Island Park, Atlantic Beach, who are suffering. I know people who are in Bayshore, Colpaig, that are suffering. I don't know where this money is, but he claims, and I'll say Ed Mangano, I don't know where he's going in 4 years, but he's claiming that he was shoulder to shoulder, day and night, in support of us down on Long Island. I don't think he was. Where's the money?
Well, look, there's two FEMAs. There's always two FEMAs in this world. There's the FEMA that comes right after the storm, and then there's the FEMA after the storm. And they have to do everything they can to protect the money that the taxpayers put out for this restoration. Do I think the money's coming? I think it is. Do I think it could have been here faster? I think everyone would agree it could be here faster. And I know that there are people still hurting, but I think that money's coming at some point. I didn't see any real answers, though. Well, I didn't see Senator Zeldin say what he would do different to get that money here faster. Did you?
Well, it's tough. I mean, he's a senator. You got 2 minutes or a minute to answer.
Right.
I quite frankly, I don't know exactly what a congressman has to do. But whatever King did to get some money in there, whatever they did over in Jersey to get money to get their shoreline fixed, that's what Bishop should have done.
I got a question for you now.
Can I just stop for 1 second? I want to give credit to Tim Bishop as an elected Democrat in New York that actually debates.
Oh, yeah.
Where is your governor, man? He will not debate. I mean, come on.
I know that.
Where is this guy?
Hey, look, I know that he's agreed to some debates. I know there's some confusion of it. Well, I will tell you this right now. I am a firm believer that when you seek public office, you should appear in public.
Where's Kathleen Rice? She's not debating.
You know, it says a lot about the races.
Where's Steve Israel? He's not debating.
Well, can I ask?
At least Tim Bishop debates.
Can I ask you a question about? You're a conservative, right? I assume you're a conservative.
Well, wait a minute. I am a traditional conservative, traditional Republican, like a Lincoln Republican, like a Reagan Republican conservative. So I don't know.
I've been. So you're for less government, basically, right? Less government.
Yeah.
So I heard Senator Zeldin say a couple times tonight that Tim Bishop only passed 4 laws. So is he saying that Congress should pass more laws, create more regulation, should be doing more things to get in the way of people? I don't know. I didn't know when passing more bills was a conservative thing.
When I was running for Congress, I said the only law I'm going to pass is a law that says no more laws. I'm sick and tired of laws.
So then what would
we
you
are
do?
Over-regulated. We are over-legislated.
So what would you do for the rest of your 2-year term?
I would help my constituents. That's about it. But I think we have too much government. I mean, we've got the Suffolk County Legislature. We've got each town's got their council. We've got the state government. There's so many levels, and everybody says, "Oh, it's somebody else's job."
Well, anytime somebody tries to consolidate districts on this island, they tend to get voted out of office. It happened to Tom Suozzi.
I think you should consolidate.
It happens.
Do you agree with consolidation?
I do agree with consolidation.
I do too.
I do indeed. Absolutely.
I mean, 126 school districts.
And you know what? It's kind of like Congress's approval rating. Everybody on Long Island will say they support consolidation until you can try to consolidate their village or their town or their school district. Just like everybody will tell you they hate Congress, but they always reelect their congressman. It is what it is.
Well, New York's got a problem with that. They have like a 98% reelection rate on their incumbents, which, that's why are you for term limits?
No, I'm not for term limits.
I am, believe it or not.
I think that there's a term limit every November, and I think the people have, one of the great things about this country is that every November, every 2 years, and every 4 years with the president, the citizens of this country come together peacefully in firehouses and schoolhouses, and they have the opportunity to overthrow their government peacefully every year.
18% of those who are eligible to vote.
Well, we got
21% of those eligible to vote voted in New York City, and look what they got. They got a communist.
Well, we got to make it a priority to get people to vote. We got to make it easier for people to vote. I know that around the country that in some conservative states they are making it harder for people to vote. I believe it should be compulsory. I think that you should have to vote in this country. I think it should be something you must do. Everyone should be coming out and voting. I don't know how we do it, but maybe you and I one day will have a conversation about it. We'll figure it out. Maybe we give free wings or something out of election booths, and people will come.
I don't know what's going to work, but the bottom line is the number one thing is economy on, or one of the top things is economy on Long Island. We're suffering. 140,000 net taxpayers leave the state of New York. We've got to do something about bringing business back here.
We're doing the post game here on 103.9 LI News Radio. I'm Christopher Hahn, host of the Christopher Hahn Show every Sunday night, 6 to 8 p.m. right here on LI News Radio. I'm talking to John Gomez, who's on every Monday through Friday, 12 to 2. We got about 5 more minutes left with you here. So just wrapping this debate up, I thought it was a good, well-behaved crowd. I think everybody was into it. There was a couple of hoots and hollers, but
no, it was a great crowd.
Passionate, very passionate debate, though. There was a lot. You could see there was a lot of passion on both sides of the aisle here tonight. They were duking it out.
One thing that came up in the debate is
it's entertaining.
Well, it's entertaining, but one thing that came up in the debate is the impact of commercials. And, you know, there's an issue about campaign finance reform. I think they should have campaign ethics reform. Either, and it's both parties. When you see party after party, you know, literature after literature, just blurting out, you know, stuff that's hinges on maybe a fraction, a hair of truth, but the rest of it is just bold-faced lies. That's something that should be investigated, and somebody should get a fine for that stuff.
You know, I saw Senator Zeldin, you know, seemed very passionate about that. Look, Tim has been doing this now. This is his 6th term running for Congress. He's never had an easy race. He's always had a strong opponent who's always attacked him on a lot of things. He's kind of like used to it. I think that this is the first time that Zeldin's been in a situation where he's had these kind of attacks. And I know, you know, a lot of politicians, when that happens, they tend to take it, they tend to internalize it a little bit too much. So, look, this is the way it is right now in politics. Neither party is going to unilaterally disarm. But you're right. We need some reform. Campaign finance reform. We should have some ethics reform in the election campaigns. I believe in publicly financed elections. I think we should take money out of politics completely. And if you have the government paying for the elections and you can't raise money for the election, then the people that are going to be representing the people and not their fundraisers.
Well, I don't know how Tim Bishop can stand here and defend Obama, especially his foreign policy. That's why, in all honesty, I'll be the first to say, my prediction right here, Hillary Clinton will not be running in 2016. I'm telling you. She's not going to run. How could she possibly run, Chris?
She's going to run because she's going to win. And that's the thing. And I will tell you this.
On what? On her foreign policy record?
Look, let me put it to you this way.
She can't even describe her foreign policy.
I'll tell you a dirty little secret about myself. I'm a Democrat. You know, I tend to be a progressive. I think I'm secretly rooting for the Republicans to take over the Senate because it'll be 2 years of trying to repeal Obamacare, trying to impeach the president, talking about things that don't matter. Meanwhile, look, the unemployment rate's the lowest it's been in a long time. The stock market's higher than it's ever been. We have more people working full-time. There are more people who have health care coverage now than ever had before. Okay. Obamacare, the secret about Obamacare that conservatives don't want to understand is that Obamacare is starting to work, and there are people who like it. You guys can call into my show every Sunday night between 6 to 8 p.m. If you disagree with me, you can come right to the front of the line.
It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. You really are.
Every Sunday night, John. I'm waiting for you to call.
What time are you on?
6 to 8 p.m., baby, right here.
And you're live?
Live. Always live, and if you disagree with me, you go right to the front of the line of my phone banks. Chris, who left to go do the Islander game, is my phone screener. He'll put you right on.
Aren't you the guy who said that the problem with conservatives is they're trying to make what did you say about vaginas? You said
they want government so small it fits into a woman's vagina. Yes, that's what I have said about conservatives. Not these particular conservatives in here. I'm talking about people like Ted Cruz and others.
Absolutely disgusting.
It's the truth, though. It's the truth. They don't want government. They don't want government to regulate banks. They don't want government to regulate fracking. They want government to regulate birth control. They want them to regulate abortion. They want to have
birth abortion.
Things that don't matter to anybody.
Partial birth abortion. I mean, what if this fetus, the partial birth abortion fetus, was a female? How about her rights?
I don't know.
Does she get a chance?
Are you trying to trick me? Is that a trick question, John?
All right, folks. Chris, it was good to talk to you. It's a Friday night. I have to go back to my wife, who I love so dearly. I love you, honey. I'm
and
coming home.
It's a Friday night for me, too, and I'll be appearing live on stage at Friday Night Face-Off tonight at 10:30. If you want some comedy, down at Fort Jeff, come on down.
Folks, thanks so much. And
thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
I'll see you at noon on Monday. Bye-bye.
5387, the New York Jets, what it means to be green.
The Hyundai Giant.
It's huge. Come to Atlantic Hyundai because Cash for Junkies is here. We'll give you $4,000 for your trade no matter the year, make, model, or shape of your vehicle. Call me right now at 1-800-GREAT-CARS.
Off dealer posted price cannot be combined with any other offer. See dealer for details.
Every day we hear about a new attack by cyber terrorists against our businesses, government, and financial systems. And the U.S. Treasury Secretary has warned these attacks are a threat to our national security and may cause massive harm to our economy. What will you do if a cyber attack destroys our financial information or cripples our economy? Will you have the protection of a physical asset you can hold in your hand, like gold or silver? Call the only gold company I trust. Gold